Welcome to the Young CPA Success Show. If you're a young accounting professional, this podcast is your ultimate guide to navigating your early career. Join us as we share valuable insights, expert advice, and practical tips to help you kickstart your path to success and excel in the accounting industry. Let's embark on this exciting accounting journey together.
And this is where we're going to start the show. Not to, talk about the thing that isn't being talked about, but Rox, we've been trying to get you on camera for no joke a year. And you keep saying this thing where you're like, well, I'm just behind the scenes. I'm not on camera. And Hannah and I kept being like, that's garbage. You are talent.
Well, I don't know about that, Joey. I just,
I
have no filter. There's no idea what you might get from me. And, sometimes that shouldn't be on camera. But
I'm not wrong on that.
My best behavior
I completely disagree. That's the stuff I want on camera. And that's why I'm glad that we're all here together. This is the Young CPA Success Show team. We've got some faces you're familiar with. We've got a couple faces you're not familiar with. But we wanted to get together today to talk about, has it been a year already? It's been a year. And this is kind of our year in review show. And we just want to do something a little bit different. And not just talk about where we've been and where we're going, but also highlight the two very talented professionals on the screen with Hannah and I, who without their support and guidance and excellence and knowledge and wonderful people that they are, the show wouldn't exist. So can the two of you please introduce yourselves so the audience can see who you are and hear you and meet you?
Go ahead, Rox.
Well, I'm Roxanne Rayner. I am behind the scenes on all the Summit Virtual CFO by Anders podcast. I will probably not be here by the time this episode airs, so it has been a privilege working with y'all. And I will throw the ball to Rob now.
Hi, I'm Rob Simos, longtime agency video editor, starting broadcast commercial work with like Ford and Zaxby's and Florida Lottery, and I was blessed to get with the Anders Summit team a long time ago, and this evolving into helping the podcast grow is been quite the blessing. So I'm the guy behind it, hitting record, editing, taking it out, making everybody look smooth, which I don't really have to do anything with these two.
Well, I'm sorry, Rob. I couldn't hear you over the names you were dropping there. Well done. Rob, your superpower is reminding me to sit up straight at all times. So thank you for that. My wife appreciates your efforts.
Exactly. Well, it's all about, it's like,
he also makes sure that I don't blend in with my wall in the background. Sometimes y'all don't know this. I've had to go change shirts like before we actually record an episode. Like Roxanne and Rob, like we literally could not do this show without them. They are not just behind the scenes. There are hair and makeup. They are quite literally tailoring the show to make sure that it is in the best package for our audience. And like Roxanne mentioned, this will probably be her one and only episode because she has another opportunity that we are just so excited for her for. So I'm just so glad that we get to capture this as this monumental anniversary of the podcast. So I'm so glad that y'all agreed to it, and I'm going to stop talking about it or I might start crying.
Hannah, you're over here thinking, the Rolling Stones are still doing reunion tours. The fact that you think Rox isn't coming back for a reunion episode is
good point.
I'm just going to manifest it and speak it into existence that it's going to happen.
Yeah, maybe the new coordinator can book me on the show. I don't know. We'll see if I pass the litmus test for your audience. Speaking of audience, so Joey, I want to kind of take us back, I don't know, a year and a half ago, maybe not quite that long. But as I mentioned earlier, I coordinate for the other shows, and I wanted to bring you on as a rotating host for the Creative Agency Success Show. And you were like, no, I want my own show. So tell me a little bit about how your idea for this show kind of manifested, and what was your initial thought and desire for that?
Well, obviously I'm a diva and I had to have my own show. That's the answer to the question. Is what is it called? Like main character syndrome?
And when you're on a show with Jody Grundon, like you can never be the main character, right?
No, that's true. And I was like, I need to step into the spotlight. Not it at all. I think the the biggest thing for me was when I was listening to our suite of podcasts, it was pretty clear to me that we had two distinct audiences. We were speaking to our clients and we were speaking to our peers. Two very big audiences that you want to speak to, but we didn't have anything that was speaking to the employees. We didn't have anything that was speaking to the people that will someday be the future of the firm. And it was important to me, and obviously to everybody in this room as well, that we have good people coming to work for us. And I think we identified pretty quickly that there wasn't a ton of content out there speaking to young CPAs. There wasn't a ton of content trying to do the types of things that we're wanting to do. And I'm so grateful that Hannah jumped in too, because it was very important to all of us in the room too, that we, had, a good balance and bring as many perspectives into the room. Hannah, I think it's very important that we have a woman's perspective on the show. That's, been a recurring theme, is this industry hasn't always been great to women. And I don't think we're going to serve ourselves in the future by not talking about this. I think that's the most important thing, is even if it's uncomfortable, we have to start having those conversations. We have to show the rest of the generations and the world that just because this is the way it's been doesn't mean it's the way it has to be. So I think it's really important to start having the conversations. And that's why I was so passionate about doing the show.
I vividly remember the conversation that Joey had pitching this idea to me that I didn't really realize at the time he was pitching the idea to me.
I was totally trying to inception this into your brain.
Yeah, like I've been like looking back, I'm like, was I just manipulated into being a podcast co-host? I don't know.
The answer is yes. The answer is yes.
Well, I remember the day you chatted me and you were like, hey, I hear you're looking for a co-host. I'd like to do it. And I was like, yes, like you are the only woman host in all of our shows, Hannah. And quite frankly, I think that you are the best. Sorry, Joey.
Wow.
She's great.
Show, and people need to hear your voice and what you're saying, what you're feeling in this industry, and mom of 3, full-time job. Like, those are, I know from experience, that's a hard role.
What I like about them though is, Joey starting it out and then bringing in Hannah, is that you both bring some great balance to the conversation. Joey's a lifelong multi-generation accountant, and Hannah brings in a whole experience of family and growing up and coming into this industry that is definitely a lot of male strong industry, and that how you both just work with each other like nobody else on working with our guests. It's just amazing.
Well, there was been fun to see. There was a reason that when Rox was asking like who would be someone to do it, like Hannah was the name. Like it was you, because of everything Rob just said, and also just having worked with you, like your presence, you do all the things well. That is an intangible piece of all of this that also factors in too. But I still remember the first episode. You were like, I'm not sure I could do this, and I was like, you can do this. And now you host all of our webinars, do all of the things that you are very uniquely set up to do in ways that I'm not. From a personality perspective, we've tried throwing me out on webinars. It does not fit well with me and my anxieties. So, I'm so thrilled to see you kind of step in and embrace that thought leader role, because you are one. And I think that's an important thing too, Rox, is showing that we've got really good, really smart, innovative, well thought people working with us. That's what I'm so excited to highlight, is our peers and coworkers who just have brilliant ideas, and it's our job to just get out of the way and let them cook.
Mm-hmm. It's been such a blast. I appreciate all of y'all's kind words, because y'all believed in me when I didn't believe in me in terms of doing this. I had a ton of imposter syndrome coming into this. Like, it was severe. In fact, we've had conversations about it on the podcast, but it's been such a pleasure. Like I couldn't have done it like without y'all at all. And so I thank y'all so much for that. I feel like it was really amazing coming into this, understanding the concept, like feeling really passionate about it, getting really on board with the mission of the podcast. But then pretty quickly on, whenever we started releasing episodes, like I started having people reach out to me on LinkedIn. Like I started having people reach out to me just via email about the podcast. And it was like, oh my gosh, like we really are reaching the people that we intended to reach. Like it felt really encouraging and really good to know that we were getting to connect with the audience, and really encouraging to know that we're talking about relevant topics. And, you know, I always tried to ask anybody reach out to me like, hey, like, is there something we're not talking about that you want to hear? Like we want to know, because we want to talk about it. And I invite anybody who's listening to this, if you hadn't already done that, for sure, do that. But that's been a really fun thing to tangibly like feel and see. And it's been so rewarding. Like obviously we talk about in the industry in and of itself, like there's a lot of things that we do that aren't very rewarding, that don't feel really good. But this has been something that has just filled my cup, because it's just truly been such a bright light. In fact, I had a really hard year prior to coming into this. And so it's been such a bright light just in my life from that perspective, but just in my career of getting to like turn off the like client issues and, you know, accounting stuff that's going on in the background, and just show up and just have some really cool, honest conversations with folks.
And you guys have been invited on other podcasts just organically because people have seen your show and, you know, wanted you to be on theirs. And I know you guys have an upcoming webinar too that you're doing. So people are really taking note of the show and, you know, the charisma that you guys have, and quite frankly, like the honesty. You know, I've worked in the accounting industry now from a marketing perspective for 2 years. And just the honesty that you guys bring to the industry and want to bring, and the change that y'all bring, I think is really important, especially for young CPAs who are just trying to get their feet wet, like navigating this industry when they're young.
Yeah. Before we go on to a lot of questions and stuff like that, I want to say is where Hannah's grown and Joey's just a natural at this is, I want to tell a little story about Hannah being a guest host on one of our other podcasts with Jamie. It was about a month and a half ago, and it's going smooth, you know. And as we all know, that Jamie on the creative agency Success Show has still, for some reason, must be using dial-up for his internet. And the podcast goes, the first question, Jamie gives out the first question, and it's going, and then all of a sudden Jamie disappears. And I'm like panicking, because not only did he just go black, he just like disappeared from the whole thing. And I saw Hannah eyes just kind of like for 1 second, and then smoothly just took over the whole show. Just carried it out. I'm seeing later I'll find out he lost power. But that's where you guys have both come to now, is like Joey's just starting these things off nice and smoothly. Like it's, you know, a professional has been doing this for 20 years. Hannah's like, you can throw her, you know, these things with people just dropping off, and she takes the show, runs with it.
Yeah, that episode is airing, I think, next week. It's with Julie Fry on the Creative Agency Success Show. So I'm excited to see that.
So when people watch that show, watch when Joey or Jamie pops off Hannah's eyes there for 2 seconds. It's just like,
I was like side messaging Jamie, like, you good? Like, where are you at?
He's gone. My favorite thing to say to Jamie is, you make too much money to have crappy internet. Like, what is going on? Like, do you live in the middle of Alaska?
There was a funny thing too. I can't remember if it was this episode or the other one, where he was like, I think his father-in-law like turned off his internet router. Was that episode?
Yes.
Oh, that was it. Oh, okay.
Yes, his father-in-law was there working at the house. And I learned later that he turned off the power.
Bless his heart. No, Joey, you are not my diva. Jamie is my diva. Between internet and his allergies and, you know, his hair that has to be.
I was saying, have you seen his hair though? His hair is my host
diva.
So I've got a question for you.
I thought you were going to say Jody Grundon was your host diva.
I mean,
well, you got to pencil in his schedule sometime. My first question for you guys is, there's been so many conversations. How many shows have we done now, Rox? This is our
we have done, hold on, sorry, I'm looking.
I'm gonna
20,
guess and say 25.
28.
28. That's a lot of guests. That's
We've
a lot of
recorded
conversation.
way
but we've
more.
got
Yeah.
way more
Yes.
than that. Have you seen a specific recurring theme from guests, problems in the industry or solutions that people are not really thinking about? What's that recurring theme that you both has stood out to you?
So the one that came to mind first for me that we've seen that I think is important, I don't know that it's been like a through line through all conversations, but I think it's one that we need to have more conversations about, is the skills gap that lives within middle management.
Yes.
Yeah, like that's just one that's really big that we've identified, but like I think that we need to have more conversations around, okay, like we've identified that, like how do we solve for that? Like how do we start to work towards making that better and just providing some solutions for the industry, or just even like brainstorming, just having more conversations. Like that was the first thing I thought of whenever you asked that question just now.
Yeah,
Really?
and the
That's
question
interesting.
on that too is, who's going to provide the resources to fix the skills gap? I think that's, if you're an owner or a manager and you're hearing this, do you recognize the call to action saying like, oh, my middle managers are probably really struggling. It is my responsibility to provide some resources and guidance here, or are you just going to sit around and wait for them to figure it out on their own? Because one of those situations leads to a good outcome. The other one just doesn't.
So that's a situation that has to be fixed. That's not something you can kick down the can down the road forever. It's sooner or later in this industry, middle management's got to have some skills, sharpening.
There's got to be some development there for sure. Joey, is there any others that you thought of that we've seen?
Well, the first one that came to mind, it's a callback to what you were just talking about with yourself too, is, when I remember we had multiple episodes that talked about the imposter syndrome and just how prevalent that is, not just in this industry, but across professionals. Like anytime you're in a position like that, like it is so common. It is so prevalent in everything that, it's a good thing to recognize and understand that A, you're not alone, and B, here's some resources that you can do to kind of try to help do that. So that's important. The other one too that I think is really interesting is just how many people we've talked to who have kind of just gone and done the thing, right? Like, hey, I was feeling this, I was feeling that. What'd you do? Oh, I just went and did the thing. I went and fixed it. I went and changed it. I went and did the thing that I wanted to do. And that takes a lot of courage. And that's something that I think is, Adam Hale talks a lot about resiliency, and a thing that is important too with resiliency is also the courage to put yourself in that position to need to be resilient. That's been a through line from all of our guests, is there's a lot of courage out there, and I admire it.
That's great. If I remember, there's been a lot of young guests. I mean, to me, being an old guy, some very young guests who, you know what, at an early age, earlier than I would have guessed, just gone out and did it and started their own thing, and it was hugely successful.
Like I was thinking of Mackenzie Patel with that was the one where, Rox, you had asked a question earlier about like, and I'll just ask the question for you because it serves my needs. So I'm going to take the mic from you here. Yeah. You had asked a question of like, what's something that like you admire or that you learned that you wish you knew, like back when you were getting started. Like, I wish that I had the courage to do what she did 10 years ago. Because she just said, look, there's a need. I want to fill it. This is good for me. This is good for my future and what I want to do. Pardon me, Rob, you might have to bleep this out. I'm just going to go do the damn thing. Like, I admire that so much and wish that I had that courage and tenacity to get after that from a young age.
Yeah.
Well, that is if people have the courage to do that now, that kind of segues answers a little bit of what we were talking about. The last one is the recurring themes. If there is a skill, it may be time to just get that courage to just do the damn thing. Let's get that going.
Yeah.
But do you think it's more of a soft skill need or a analytical or technical skill need, or just courage? Like I am almost middle-aged. I mean, I'm not quite as old as Rob, but like the thought of just doing something different like terrifies me to my bones. Like, do you think it's almost easier to do that and have those skills when you're like in your 20s?
I have some radical thoughts on this, but Hannah, if you have something more,
I'd love to hear them. Go for it.
There is, okay, I'm going to put on my prognosticator hat because, Rox, your personality is 25 and may you always stay 25.
I pay a lot of money to try to still look 25. Thank you for noticing.
Your energy is that energy. And I think the challenge with this is I think we're on the eve of a great shakeup. And here's why. Historically, there has always been, in economics, we call it a barrier to entry with firm ownership. There were many, many restrictions. Think about like a factory, right? If you're an entrepreneur and your business model is, I want to build cars, the barrier to entry to that is I have to have enough capital to go buy a factory to build cars. Or I have to have enough capital to go to a bank and get them to lend me money to build a factory to build cars, right? Now, you don't have the same barriers to entry in your mid-20s. You want to start a firm, an accounting firm in your mid-20s, and our friends Chayton and Caden are proof of this, right? These guys are, Caden's a couple years out of college, Chayton's still in college, and they are already starting to do the damn thing. And right now, there aren't the same levels of barrier to entry. You can start an accounting firm with a QuickBooks online subscription and an internet connection. You don't have to sit there and have enough capital to go convince a landlord to lease you space so you could go start your accounting practice. You can start an accounting practice from right here. You can start a consulting practice. It's technology, but it's also, there was a great book that was written in like 2006 called The World is Flat, that was talking about how traditional power structures in the world were flattening, right? We started seeing a lot more offshoring. We started seeing a lot more competition from areas of the world that historically could not compete with the US from a resources perspective. But now that we've created interconnectivity, there are more and more opportunities for people. And that should be terrifying to the existing class of business owners. And B, it should be empowering to that younger generation. Not saying that every person who's coming out of college right away wants to be a firm owner. There's a role for everybody. I think the throughput from all of this, and my thesis about all of this is, if this is something that you want to do and you're in your early 20s, or you're thinking about what you want to do and you're like, man, I just don't know that I want to go live in this traditional hierarchy. I see things differently. Or I want to take a bit more control over my future. Like, the ability to do that now in 2024 is so much easier than it was in 2012 when I graduated. And it's only going to get easier. Like, AI is going to find us the first trillionaire. We just don't know who that's going to be yet, but someone's going to be a trillionaire off of AI. There's all kinds of opportunity out there. And I think that's the call to action for younger folks is, man, it's never going to be easier to do that than when you're in your 20s. I think back to my first year right out of college. Sorry, this is a long soliloquy, but I'm just going to keep going.
Just roll with it.
My first year in public accounting, when I was still kind of finishing up school, but like, I was living in Manhattan, Kansas. I was living with my 3 college roommates. Like, we all shared a house together. I think my living expenses were like $300 a month. Like, life was never cheaper than it was for me at that moment. And then you start layering in, I think, Rox, maybe this is why it's challenging for you and I in our late 30s to think about this, is like, you know, we've got kids, we've got families, we've got mortgages, we've got savings obligations. It is only going to get harder for you to do that as your life grows and your responsibilities expand. So if that is something that you're interested in, do the damn thing. If not for yourself, do it for me.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And doing the damn thing doesn't necessarily have to look like starting your own firm. It can look like starting your own podcast in whatever you're passionate about. Because I feel like that's exactly what we did. So like, you know, maybe Joey, you didn't get to do that in your early 20s, but like you did that in your late 30s. Like you proved to yourself that like we could do it. And like we've literally gone and done it. And, you know, I think we started out thinking like we might reach, I don't know, at least I did. I was like, if we reach like 15, 20 people, like that's at least 15 or 20 people that like will hear the things that are really important to us, like make sure that they know they're not alone in the industry. They're not on an island. Like we are feeling the same things that they are feeling. We've been there. We've done that. Like that was a success to me. So to hear, like, I remember there was one point, like Roxanne ended up like telling me like how many downloads or like listens or streams or some statistic about one of the episodes. And like my jaw like was on the floor.
Yeah, I was like what?
It was insane, like how many people like we've actually reached. So I say that to say as well, like you may think that, you know, oh, like I don't have what it takes, like I won't have enough reach, I won't like, you don't know until you try. You don't know until you put yourself out there and see what happens. Like that does take courage and bravery, and lean on people for encouragement, because there's a whole network of people that want to cheer you on. So lean into that.
Starting with these two people.
Speaking of downloads, you guys want to hear how many downloads we've gotten in a year?
Yeah.
You might want to guess.
We've not heard this number, by the way, audience. Like we don't know.
I don't even know.
Anybody want to guess?
I'm gonna say 2,500.
Oh, I was gonna say like 350, maybe.
I'm gonna go Price and Right rules and go 2,499.
Okay, so we have 28 episodes over the past year. 5,000.
Really?
Stop.
Yes.
That's really, really impressive.
And we do audio and video. So here are a few more fun facts for you. So the most viewed on YouTube was with Caden Cook with 168 views. And directly underneath that was Dave Hartley with 162 views. You guys are listened to around the world: US, Canada, Hong Kong, Philippines, India, and Singapore. And Monday is the favorite day for people to listen to the Young CPA Success Show between the hours of 8 and 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time.
People are commuting to work. Yep. We are so glad we get to join you on your morning commute.
Well,
even if it looks like from your living room to your office.
Rob and I, when I took over the existing shows, for whatever reason, the published time was 12 p.m. Eastern. And Rob was like, hey, why don't we bump that up so we can catch people on our commute? And so I started publishing your show immediately when it started at 5:30 a.m. Eastern time. So I think, Hannah, you're right. I think people are listening to you first thing Monday morning.
Hey.
And number one most downloads audio is Dave Hartley. No surprise there. Number two.
Good show.
That was such a good show. Such a good show.
It really was.
Number 2 is Kristen Keats. And number 3 is Dave Danick. Because taxes are fun, right?
According to him.
According to Dave Danick, they are. And somebody actually listened to the show, right? Because he recorded because he had an opening on his team. And the person he ended up hiring found us through the show, through the episode.
So I'm hearing win.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
We're not going to let Dave know that he's got the number 3 downloaded episode, because I was talking about college football over the weekend, and he basically said Michigan's trophy is so loud he can't hear any of the smack that I'm talking. So we need to not let his ego get out of control here. Otherwise, we're all in trouble.
Oh, I think it's cute when you guys talk about sports football. It's cute.
Sports football, sportsing.
Is that the white one you hit with a stick or the brown thing you throw?
Brown thing you throw.
Oh, okay. Are we? So wait, what season is it? It's tennis.
It's hockey season.
Hockey. It's
pickleball season. It's always
football.
pickleball season.
It's cheerleading season. It's what?
So bye, everybody. Thanks for listening to the show.
Exactly. So where you guys were you talking before the all the stats, which were quite impressive. Why do you both think this show is so important to our target audience, young professionals looking to get in this industry? And I'm going to start with you.
Yeah, I think it's kind of what I spoke to earlier, is just the fact that we're able to speak to our peers in a way that lets them know that we're going through the same things too. We're experiencing the same things they have. And maybe we're speaking to people who are just maybe a season behind us in terms of in life and in their career. And so I think it's a unique perspective. I know I'm thinking if I'd had a podcast, if podcasts were a thing when I was in my early 20s, to listen to like this, I would have absolutely done it. I would have like soaked it in and just tried to like get as much as I could from it that I could apply to my career. Just for me, I always tend to look for like, what are the things that are within my control? What are the things that I can do from a personal development, professional development perspective? And this is one of those types of things. And so I think it's really cool that we get to be that for people, but I think it just really resonates for that reason.
So what would you tell your younger self? Like now that you have this podcast and you've done these interviews and that experience, like what would you go tell your like 24-year-old Hannah?
I think, I've been thinking about this, and I think there's obviously a lot of things that I would tell 24-year-old Hannah, that is for sure. But one thing that I didn't do a lot of early in my career was lean into mentorship as much as I've wanted to. That's been a recurring theme on the podcast. And I just like so enjoyed hearing the relationships that have been built like early on in people's careers that just like totally impacted their life and trajectory of their career. And I really just didn't have that. And I think it's cool that I get to be that for people now. And like, I really try to be very mindful of that and take good care of that relationship, because I know it means so much to so many. But I didn't have that a lot, but I think there were plenty of opportunities. It's just that was not where my focus was at the time. And I do wish that I had focused a little bit more on that, because I think for a lot of reasons from a personal development perspective, but even from professional, like just networking perspective, like I think it could have made a difference. But, that's okay. Like the journey has been part of like what I've been able to share here too. That's unique. So as much as I say, like, I wish I'd have known it, I don't know. Maybe I wouldn't have had the same perspective that I'm able to have for the show had I known it.
I think we're all here we're here in this moment for a reason. Whether you're super spiritual or not, like I do kind of think that there is, not to steal from Chevy Chase, but a force in the world that sort of lets things happen. So feed the ball, Danny. That was for my cousin Kenneth. You're welcome, buddy. I got that in the show. Hannah, I think your point there is fantastic, which is saying like, I don't think I'd change anything about myself, but there are a lot of experiences that I had that I wish were different. And Rob, to answer your question about why I think this is important, what I want someone listening to this show, if you feel lost, I want you to hear that there's someone there who cares. If you feel like the promise of this industry far outweighs the reality of what it looks like, I want you to hear from us that we agree with you and we want to change it. I'm sure you've seen these things on social media where it's like, if there's 1,000 people doing this, like I'm part of it. If there's 500 people, I'm still there. If there's one person cheerleading for this, it's because I'm still here. If there's none, it's because I'm gone. Like, that's how I feel about this. Like, it's too important to not do. And it's, I've had some great experiences in public accounting. I've had some horrible experiences in public accounting. Right. And I think there's a lot of promise for, as Dave Hardley gave 10 really good reasons why today is the most exciting time in the world to be an accountant. I just want to make sure that the reality of this industry matches up to the promise. If we do that, we're going to go a long way.
Right. Mm-hmm.
There's a really big opportunity in front of all of us listening to this, all of us speaking in this room. Like, we have a huge opportunity in front of us to make an impact, truly change the way people think about accounting and accountants, to make this more appealing, but also be just really honest. So that way people know, like, they can come into this with eyes wide open, that they don't get here and feel like they were sold something that is a lemon and they need to go return it and do something different. Like, we really want to be sure that we provide some transparency, have the hard conversations, but also start to make a difference. So that way we don't have to have as many hard conversations in the future.
Yeah. I love this. You guys are leading right into my questions I've had for you.
Oh, good.
So, I mean, this works out great. So, not including the Dave Hartley episode, because if our listeners out there, that's a one that you guys have to listen to. What other episodes that we've done in the past that you think the young professionals who are either looking to get into this industry or having those hard times, man, it's sticking this out. What episodes have we done that you would recommend them to go back and watch?
I would say for me, anything with Blake Oliver. The one we did on his show was really good too, but when he was on our show, it was fantastic. I'd be remiss if I didn't shout out my buddy Victor Ogilvy. I thought that was a really fun one about mentorship and kind of finding people who can help you be successful and what it takes to also be an active partner in your own success. I think that's a really important one. Also, our episode with our friends from Finalytics, Tom and Jesse, that was probably the most fun from our perspective. Absolutely. We had the most fun doing that one. So, Hannah, did I steal any of yours?
No, I was going to say the only one I would probably add to that would be the Kristen Keats episode, just talking about finding joy just within our industry and our conversation around that. So yeah, you totally hit the nail on the head with the episodes I'd point somebody to.
Great.
And what's interesting is when I first started to book for this show, I was kind of nervous because I thought that everybody had to be in the accounting industry. Like, on the MCPA, most of our guests on that show have to be in accounting. So I was really nervous about, pitching for your show because I was thinking like, oh, they all have to be in the industry. They have to be seasoned. They have to be leaders. They have to be teachers. And that's really not true. I mean, yes, we have had some big names on your show that are within the industry, but I think some of the best ones have just been, from different industries, coaches, and just completely different takes that I would not have thought when we started.
We were talking before we started recording that I really think that Joey and I's superpower might be that we could quite literally have anybody on the show and we can find a way to find something that is relevant to our audience that we can direct the conversation in that way. So if you're listening to this and you know somebody, like, send them our way. They can y'all can come on the show. Like, we will just have a good time. But that I'm really honestly like proud of us for that in terms of like we've really just diversified in terms of like who we've spoken to and from the perspectives and the topics and all the things. So just I'm proud of this. Feels like it's my little baby. This show is, and it's turning 1 year years old. I was just disappointed too that we didn't have cake on this episode. Like, we should have totally gotten some cake.
Well, I ate cake for breakfast. Does that count? It's pumpkin spice.
I was going to say, speak for yourself. Like, I always have cake.
Exactly.
Or in this case, pumpkin spice bread that my wife made last night. That's
the same thing. Same thing.
Yeah, it's all the same.
So do y'all feel like mentors? I know you talked about mentorship, but like, do you personally feel like if somebody came to you and said, will you be my personal or professional mentor? Like, how does that make you feel?
I mean, from an imposter syndrome perspective, I don't know that I will ever feel that way. Like, but whenever I take a step back and look at it, I think I've grown a lot in this, because a year ago I would have said like, absolutely not. Like, that is not me. Yeah, I think so. In some ways, I think Joey and I both have been given opportunities, even within our roles here, to provide that for our staff in this perspective, for people that we've come in contact with since starting the show. And so, yeah, I think we have. But I think that, like, this show has also like helped equip me for that, and help prepare me for being able to be the best I can be in that.
Yeah, even if not a mentor specifically, just like I think the role that I really want to play just in life is the cool older cousin or older brother who like shows you the cool records, like when you're a kid and it's like, oh, I thought music was cool. And then I listened to, Pink Floyd because my older cousin gave me a Pink Floyd record, or in my case, it was my cousin Kenneth giving me Bob Dylan, right? That's the kind of role that I think I was born to play is, I'm probably not going to be the person and we talk about coaching a lot. Like, I'm not going to be the type of coach who's like, screaming at you on the sidelines. I'm more of the coach who's like, the first one off the bench to give you a high five, when you're doing something. That's the role that I want to play. So if anybody is looking for that, I'm around. I'm here.
Send them in, coach.
Come to Albuquerque in the fall. It's wonderful.
That's like a cheerleader. Should I send you some pom-poms?
Sure.
Yeah. Do it.
I like it.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations on your first year, everyone. It's great to see this from where it's come started to where we've come to today. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's been an honor from, taking this to just a thought in Joey's mind and, now a year, and it's been really fun, guys.
Well, thank you for helping it happen. And Rox, I'm so glad we had to wait until you were like, going to do something really cool for you to actually come on the show. But I'm glad that you were able to make it and let us introduce the world to the two brilliant people behind the scenes who kind of helped this thing happen. Because, again, without either of you, this doesn't happen. Without either of you, we don't have a show. We don't have guests. We don't have bumper music. We don't have anything. It's just us screaming out into the ether. So from the bottom of my heart,
cheers,
thank you both.
Cheers to another good year. The first one was amazing, but raising I guess I could raise my coffee glass. There we go.
Raise on my
coffee, everybody. Yep. It's always time for coffee.
If you're a young CPA looking to develop in their careers, we're always looking for great people. Visit our website for remote work opportunities with Summit Virtual CFO, or find all our open positions at Anders CPAs and Advisors.